for it, out of the surrounding hills. A fine house for that part of the world, and perhaps that was why it had drawn attention. Lee stood in the fringes of the forest, unsure what to do. The fish slid unnoticed from his fingers. Why was no one fighting the fire, pumping water from the well, passing buckets, and soaking down the wood that had not yet caught? He scanned the yard. No one was there, not his father nor his brother, not anyone. Keeping within the shelter of the woods, he circled around to the back of the house, knowing the hedges and walls that quilted the gardens would give him cover. His father had come over from the old world, and he was proud of those gardens. They were civilized, hemmed in by stone, like those in their family's ancestral home. Instinct told him to stay hidden. He crouched, fading into the shadow of the stone wall where it ran near the forest, following it back to the house. The skin on his face tightened from the heat of the kitchen fire as he slipped past it, through the vegetable garden, to the back door of the house. The door was standing partly ajar. He pushed it wide open. It was a mess inside. Clearly, his family had been at the table when the attack came. Had he returned on time, he would have been among them. Food lay scattered, ground into the floor, bread and pieces of fruit, and the small cinnamon tarts that Martin liked so well. The furniture had been chopped to pieces and set ablaze like kindling. Tables were overturned, crockery shattered against the wall. Someone was either very angry or wanted to make a point. Lee circled around the shards of glass on the floor, aware of his bare feet. He crept farther into the house, barely breathing, keeping flat to the wall, his ears straining for any clue that would tell him the intruders were still inside. As he moved toward the great hall, he became aware of a sound, a rhythmic banging. It grew louder as he drew closer to the front of the house. As he slid his hand along the wall, he encountered something wet. Bringing his hand close to his face, he caught the metallic scent of blood. Blood was splashed all over the floors and walls. Dark red puddles were congealing between the stones and the floor. His heart clamored in his chest. He had to fight to get his breath, but he forced himself to go on. A body lay in the doorway to the hall. A man dressed too fine to be local, in a waistcoat and a silk shirt and cravat, not homespun like Lee's. He looked middle-aged, but was probably much older. A man who carried no obvious weapons and needed none. A wizard, it must be. Lee's brother, Martin, lay face down just beyond the doorway, his body nearly torn in two. Most of the blood must have been his. He was 10 years older, big and broad-shouldered, known as a hard worker, practical, not a dreamer like Lee. And a weir. No magic in him. No match for wizards. Martin. Lee's lips formed the word, but he had no breath to make a sound. Lee crept into the room, feeling the tacky blood under his toes. There were the bodies of 2 more wizards, and then he saw his father, sprawled across the hearth, his legs in the fireplace, as if he'd been thrown there. His father, who told him stories of castles and manor houses across the ocean, who could steal fire out of the air with his fingers and spin shields out of sunlight, who called him Wizard Heir and had begun to teach him the charms that would shape magic to his use, who had been powerful enough and smart enough to protect them from anything. Until now. Lee fell to his knees retching and lost what little remained of his breakfast. Then he heard the noise again, the banging sound. His mother was huddled in her rocking chair next to the fireplace, her knitting on her lap. The sound he'd heard was the slam of the rocker against the wall. Now that he was closer, he could hear her knitting needles, clicking together in a businesslike fashion. But she had picked up no stitches. Although she had yarn in her basket and on her lap, she was knitting nothing. "Mama?" he whispered, drawing close to her, looking warily over his shoulder. "Was it the roses?" She stared.